years.
There you go.
So how you doing, man? I appreciate you doing this. It's great
Yeah,
to
I'm
officially meet
excited.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've
me
got
too.
almost summer-like weather here, so you keep sending good stuff this way.
Man, I'm trying. It was crazy today. I got out for my run and it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was gorgeous.
yeah.
Did you get out today?
I did, and it's actually almost hot. Like for
Yeah.
us, it's probably close to 70, and that's pretty warm for us even in May, let alone March. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's getting warm here. I think we're going to be in the 80s now. So, yeah,
yeah,
we're sharing the warm weather.
yeah. So
Yeah, so
crazy.
so let's we chatted a little bit before this whole thing. We got a lot of ground to cover as far as lots of questions I'd like to ask you,
Cool.
but I don't want to take the easy way out of this. So I actually want to ask you if somebody if you were introducing yourself to somebody, how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Tough one, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I guess that like my go-to when when there's like no connection, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey, I own my own coaching business and I'm an author and I'm a runner, and
Nice.
I think that really just sums it up and leads to other questions.
So then let's start kind of at the beginning because I'd really like to understand, young Eric and
Yeah,
how you grew up, which led into the coaching sphere, and then obviously all the rest of the things we can kind of get into, in somewhat chronological. We might bounce around a little bit, but
yeah.
I think you seem to be game for a fun
Totally,
conversation. So,
totally. And yeah.
okay, so where'd you grow up? What were you like as a kid? Only child? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town just south of Buffalo, New York.
Oh, okay,
And it was a ski town. So I've always lived in a ski town. So the
nice.
town is called Springville, New York. And
Okay.
again, just 30 miles south of Buffalo and in the Allegheny Mountains. So
Mm.
we actually, at that time, we had three ski resorts
Oh man,
in this small little town.
all
So
close to you.
yeah, yeah. So it was pretty awesome. And so I have two younger sisters,
Okay.
but I have, there was nine of us cousins, including me, and I was the only boy.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so that kind of, reflecting back, that had a lot of indirect um, positiveness, I guess, towards my athletic career and stuff that we can dive into. But yeah,
Sure.
so I'm real comfortable being around women, and I have a wife and I have a daughter, and know what it's like to be around women. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
we share that too because you met one of my kids. So
yep,
between my wife and I, we have five, and it's
yep.
my son.
Okay,
I have a son, and then all girls. So
yeah,
same thing.
nice.
Raising young women, my wife, all that thing. So lots of shutting the lights off,
Yep,
and I don't go into the upstairs bathroom. I avoid avoid it at
exactly.
all costs.
Yep,
But
yep.
okay, so you were the only boy growing up in the family. I mean, were you guys all close then? Did you spent a lot of time on the ski mountain? You said there's three close by.
Yeah, so we, as a family, I distinctly remember. So I forget, it was either a Thursday or Friday. The big ski resort close by always had from 5 to 6 p.m. It was free.
Nice,
And so I still remember as a family, we would all jump in the car and drive. And then it was like, how many laps can you get in an hour? You
nice.
know?
Time
And so
trials.
that always just stuck out in my mind. And, and we did that as a family. We did some Nordic skiing as a family, early on before, you start getting it caught into activities with school and such. But
Sure. So in
yeah.
school, were you involved in athletics and sports? Where did running come into it?
Yeah. So I've always been a runner for a variety of reasons from the earliest I can remember. Was from early, elementary school when we had field day where you went out and did little competitions. I was kind of always the fastest. And so real early on, I just remember being one of the faster people around, within a neighborhood or school. And that led early on. I was a football player, and that was kind of
okay.
my sport. So,
How tall are
and
you?
so interesting, getting back to Springville, New York. Pop Warner, who started Pop Warner football and
Mm-hmm.
was the coach for Jim Thorpe,
Oh,
was
okay.
from my hometown.
Oh, wow.
So, literally a block over in our backyard was a horse track that he would bring Jim Thorpe to train.
Crazy.
And so again, that was part of our history, within the the town. But I was very fortunate to get caught up into football very early on because we had a kind of a storied program,
Oh, yeah.
and that played a huge role in my entire life, but also really into how I coach. And
Nice. So you were
even
kind of
though it
guilty
wasn't
by
running,
association.
yeah. So.
So then,
But
did you run track then
yeah,
too? Then,
I was
like
going to say
organized
I
track?
did track. Yep, but and mainly did that later in high school to prepare for college football. To
Oh,
hone the
wow.
speed. And back then it was, you didn't train year round with a personal trainer like they do
Yeah.
nowadays,
Yeah.
where the way to train was to do track and field for football.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
and how tall are you?
five 5'10", 5'9",
Okay.
5'10". So yeah, back then. But
And what position did you play?
I was a running back and defensive back.
Ah,
So
okay, nice.
yeah, and
So
that was back when the running back was the guy rather than the
that's the
quarterback.
guy. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
You were the guy.
yeah,
Nice. So you're focusing on football then, running. You're doing because you're enjoying it and you're fast, but it's kind of secondary to football still at this point. It sounds like.
yeah. As far as the track and field, yes,
Uh-huh.
it was. But yeah, football was the main focus.
That was it.
Yeah, I played a little hockey, played a little baseball, and just a little bit of everything. Skiing, obviously, but
Sure.
football was early on. It just became who I was, like even within the town. It was.
With skiing, was it all downhill or did you do cross country? Because you hear a lot of with the running side of things, Nordic skiing and skimo. It's
Yeah.
really good for cross training. What were you into with the skiing
Yeah,
side?
mostly it was alpine downhill. We
Nice.
we did a
Okay.
little bit of cross country as a family, but that was at that time tug and pull with the kids wanting to do that. But
Sure.
then I got into skimo once I moved to Jackson.
Gotcha. And did your mom or dad or anybody, did they run or anything like that? Were they active in high school or college or anything?
No, I've heard that you get your athleticism from your mother's side.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not, but
Okay, sounds
she
good.
had several. One nephew played for the Jets,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and so there was a lot of athleticism on that side of the family. My dad was more of a musician, and they were farmers, and farmer strong. So not as hardcore athletic, but
Well, if you're a farmer,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
yeah. We have in my background we've got my dad's side. We're all farmers too, so I'm familiar
yeah,
with that as well.
yeah,
So,
totally.
as you're going through high school, you're starting to look at college. Are you thinking, if there's a Jet somewhere in the family lineage as well? Are you looking for NFL? What's it look like
That
for you there?
Not
Or
really.
still just something you do for fun?
It, to be honest, I never, I never, you dream about it as a kid, but to be truly honest, I never really thought that it was in the cards. I played college football because it was always who I was. So it was just natural to keep
The
taking
natural
it,
progression. That's where you went
and
next.
and I guess maybe the reason why NFL never entered is that I joke that back then it was more about the running back than the quarterback like it is today. And I think if I played today, I would have been more of like a slot receiver
Sure.
based on
Not,
my size.
Yeah,
and
and
my
that's kind of why I was
quickness,
asking how
quick.
big you were.
Yeah. So having said that, I was still, I played tough, but I got beat up, and
Sure.
it just got to the point where it's like it just, you never could get ahead of it type of thing. And
So
so
you did play in college then?
yeah.
Okay, so let me step back from there. So when you're coming out of high school, what are you looking for in college? What are you studying? What are you wanting to study? And what colleges are you looking at?
Yeah. So again, upon reflection, it's hard to, I'm pretty behind the scenes type of guy, and but it's, from the first time I started to play football, I was like the guy,
Yeah.
and I just actually talked to one of my high school friends and my little league coach, and I didn't realize they designed the offense around me.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
I learned that like a month ago.
Oh dang. Okay.
And so you're so in it, and so my identity became football, and so I never really had to think like, what do I want to major in? What what's school?
Football's going to take me
Yeah.
wherever I
And
want to go.
so and so to answer your question, I realized that I didn't want to go Division I football because I knew it's probably going to be, I could make the team, but it might be 4 years before I play, just based on my
Sure.
size. And so I went
You're
Division
looking for
II.
opportunity.
Yeah, and it was in a small Pennsylvania school,
Oh, okay. I was going
and
to ask you, I want to figure out how you ended up in Denver, but so you
yeah,
started in Pennsylvania. Okay.
yeah. So I was recruited around. I went to visit all these schools, and so I visited Lock Haven University. It was it's kind of near Penn State to kind of
Oh,
give you a
okay.
visual.
Sure.
In the mountains, again, more mountains. And so they were their top tailback and running back was graduating, and there was no one behind him. So I'm like, oh, this is a good opportunity.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, seven other players felt the same way,
So
and
everybody's lining up, they're wanting to be the first in
I
for
was
it.
the only one from New York. So quite quickly, I realized there was a pecking order based on where you were from, because all those coaches heard of all these guys throughout their whole career. And they
Gotcha.
didn't really necessarily hear me. So long story short, it was fun, but I transferred like after my first semester
Gotcha.
and went back to New York, went Division III, played right away. And it was a great decision because then at that point it was just about playing and,
Having a good time.
yeah.
So is your playing football, and obviously your career is you're a storied coach, which we're going to get into, and you're putting together training protocols, and were you kind of thoughtful in that way early on when you were playing football? I mean, were you very structured in your training, in your approach to your physical activities at that point, or was it just you were kind of naturally athletic and just kind of going with what you had?
All of that.
Okay.
Obviously, I think there was a certain part that was genetic. I think being quick and fast, there's a lot of genetics there that you can't just put fast twitch into slow twitch people. You can do
Sure.
it a little bit, but it's easier to go the other way around, which is part of my endurance story.
Gotcha. Okay.
But again, I've reflected a lot on this, especially writing The Cool Impossible in my book. That I mentioned that our there it is. Our football program was very, one of the best programs in the state of New York.
Okay.
I played 9 years there, including Little League and high school, and we lost 4 games.
Oh, wow.
One year, our defense allowed 12 points.
Holy smokes.
So we were very, very good because of our coaching.
Okay.
The high schooler coaches were in sync with the Little League coaches. They all coached a certain way, and it was all based on development, all based on repetition, building the fundamentals. And the reason I was tough and good at 5'9", 180 pounds was I had this sound understanding of fundamentals and how to use my body. And, again, I didn't realize it at the time, but that really gave me this knowledge of how important it is to understand fundamentals and technique and the repetition of that, regardless of what sport it is, and obviously later on in running. And being a sprinter actually helped with run form and that whole part of it. But then on more of the goofy side, going back to being the only boy, I spent a lot of time alone growing up because both my parents were teachers and, I had sisters. So for me to go play like a boy, I was always playing football and doing things by myself and having to make things up. And, you just visualize all the plays and making the cuts and just teaching your body from a visualization standpoint of how to play.
So what does that look like for you? As you're going through these visualizations, is that like in your room, you're going through the mental side of it and the mental preparation, or does that mean you're out there on the field by yourself, the lights, the sun's going down and you're still hammering those repetitions? Or what's that look like for you?
It's all of that. It's sitting in front of the TV watching football and tossing the football in the air and visualizing me doing what they're doing on TV, to going outside and just making cuts and making people miss. And it sounds weird, but that had a profound effect on my athleticism, because what I started to see happen is that some of the things I did on the field were things I practiced.
Interesting. And there is a lot of science around visualization and all that, which, as we get further into this conversation, it sounds like these earlier influences impacted you pretty heavily because, as we discussed earlier, part of your coaching approach is very much that physical game. It's not just, the physical, or the mental game rather. It's not just the physical reps that you're putting in, but it's that mental preparation and, full alignment, which, obviously we'll dive into that as well.
Well, and it even goes as far as understanding that there's a process of getting what you desire, which went into quitting my job without having another job and becoming a coach and starting the whole coaching side of things. All this visualization and imagining and dreaming, daydreaming, all played a huge part in me as a coach, starting from the business side of things, writing a book. I imagined writing a book. I imagined where I am as a coach today, and that all goes back to what maybe I just intuitively did as a kid. Upon reflection, I started to see these patterns of how I thought that can be put into place for other things to really create a system of getting what you want in life.
And I appreciate that you said system, because that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about is how that looks when you have a goal. A goal is one thing, but then having a system to, get to that goal and make it repeatable is a completely, separate component. So I find that super interesting. So, so we'll step back. So you're getting back, through college then, and you're kind of getting through your football career. Yeah. When does it start to shift to where running becomes more of a focus for you?
So with everything we just talked about, I always was enamored by the Olympics. And when I did track and field, I saw this other side of athleticism and sport, of more of the individual side. I always was like, oh, the cyclists, they're just out riding by themselves. I was always a team guy. And so that was always in the back of my mind. So after graduating from college, I decided to move to Denver with my cousin.
Okay.
And that was the next game changer.
And what was the reason for that? I was going to ask if maybe it was another step of college that took you there, but why Denver?
I heard that she was leaving And I said, can I go with you? And we left 3 weeks later. I had never, ever thought about Denver. It was always like Boston or New York or, kind of staying East Coast.
East Coast
Denver
kid.
never entered my mind. But again, going back to like having this intuitive feeling of when she said Denver, just there was no hesitation. And I just trusted that
Just knew
this
that's where
was
you
the
had to
right thing
be.
to do. There was no reason to do it. There was, and again, 3 weeks later, if it was maybe any longer, I probably would have talked myself out of it.
Interesting.
So yeah, we left and, got settled. And then that's really when it was like, oh, wow. Okay. Now, in this endurance thing is a way for me to continue my athleticism after college. And it's something that really quickly I realized that, wow, I can get better at this for a long time.
So, sorry, not to cut you off there.
yeah.
So you kind of pivot to the endurance side of things. So what were you studying in college then? So obviously, we've talked a lot about, football and running and all that, but you have to go to classes. You have to, what are you studying? What's got your
at that
interest?
point, I was marketing, business marketing.
Oh, interesting.
And I think now that you say that, I think there's a link there with, I've always felt that people who are into marketing, it's an intuition and it's a feeling and you can't explain it sometimes. And that's kind of like,
It's a highly undervalued skill set.
yeah.
Marketing and the understanding.
I felt like I had that, and that's what interests me about it.
What were you going for? You're studying marketing. What was the end goal of this? When you finish school and you have a degree in marketing, what were you going to do? Or had you even thought that far?
Yeah, at that time, it's still, again, I've done a lot of reflection on this, and looking back, I was never forced to have to think about this.
And why is that?
Because of football. Because
It gave you a focus.
athleticism was all. It was always the forefront in who I was and identity. But then once that was over with, I had to all of a sudden make that switch. And I think that's maybe what was so profound about Denver.
How hard was that for you? Because you're going from this, this guy who's focused on football, obviously still running, going to school for marketing, and then you kind of see, the potential end of the football career. Is it scary as you're coming into that pivot? Like, oh my God, I have to make this work now? Or was it just like, this is just a natural evolution and I'm just stoked to go all in this direction?
Well, towards the end of college, I could see like there was a part of me that was like rebelling against my own identity, that I wanted to be, I didn't want to be like that athlete. And that's when music really became part of me exploring like creative side and like dressing differently and that whole kind of that whole punk movement of like, I think just deep down, I wanted to create a different identity that and be me. I think you get so ingrained in Eric, the athlete, that you want to create a different persona for yourself.
So let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
So obviously music is a huge passion of yours too.
Yeah.
Where did the music side start? Where did you first have interest in music at all? Was it just, throwing on a record and listening to it? Was it, instruments in general?
So my dad plays the piano, and both he and my mother sing. Like,
oh, nice.
Just like in the community, not like no, so there was always that component. So we were always encouraged to play an instrument at, once you could in elementary school. So
did you have to play piano first?
I never played piano. My sisters did, but no.
Oh, my mom, she made us any instrument we wanted to play. We had to play piano first.
Yeah. No,
got
so I
lucky.
remember in elementary school, I forget what grade you can start to play an instrument, but you had to
Hmm.
like name three instruments that you would like. And I think trumpet was first, the drums were second, and trombone was third. And I got trombone.
Oh, nice.
So
So
I played
did you
trombone
play in?
through ninth grade.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, how did it develop from there? Because you have a passion for guitars in our earlier conversation. How did the music transition to where you're playing trombone and now you're going through this life shift where it seems like music is kind of hitting you again on another level? You know, what's
Yeah.
that shift look like to you? You're kind of moving through the college and identity. How does it change?
I think again, I've done a lot of reflection even since we talked that first time. I think music, I didn't realize, but music was that early way of me being by myself,
Mm,
creating that other identity. That it wasn't about sports. Even again, I love sports. I love, but you in a small town, you just get wrapped up in it, and that's who you become.
right.
And so music was my way of putting the headphones on, going, put the record on the record player, and just being with myself and really imagining, my life and what I want to do. And I think music presents a same type of feeling that running does
Mm.
of like what's possible, and it creates a good feeling within yourself, and it makes you feel good about yourself. And that was my way of getting away. So
What were you listening to?
my first concert was John Denver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the family. But then I think my first record that I purchased on my own was Peter Frampton Comes Alive.
Ooh, nice. Love Peter Frampton.
And but then we had um, a general store in our town that you'd walk past every day from school. And so every Friday they would have new 45s, like the
Nice.
singles. So
Mm-hmm.
that was like 99 cents. And so that was the thing to do, is every Friday you go and see what's new. And I just remember collecting 45s. But ultimately, in high school, I kind of gravitated more to heavy metal at that time. And then in college, really got into, at that time, it was, kind of the mid 80s. So it was that post punk, the
Mm-hmm.
Replacements, the
Oh, yeah.
Clash, Husker Du,
All the
Peter
good stuff.
Murphy, and all in that, I ultimately went back to school in Buffalo. That's where I ended up, at Buffalo State University. And so they had a huge music scene. The Goo Goo Dolls were just starting then. I
Nice.
used to do laundry with the Goo Goo Dolls, and so it was this whole environment of the bars would. It was kind of like CBGBs, where
Mm.
the bars would only allow original music. And so we would go watch the Goo Goo Dolls and all these underground bands, and just that whole underground scene was just really a really great outlet for me at that time.
It's interesting you say that because with the music side of things, I think there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. I find myself kind of embracing solitude as well. I like throwing on the
Yep.
headphones and really going deep inside, just kind of where it lets your mind navigate, which seems to kind of track with running
Yep.
and distance running and spending time in the hills. And so let's go ahead and get you. You're in Denver now, and
Yep.
you go kind of with no plan other than I'm going to go and see what happens. You're starting to change, and a little bit more influenced by music and life in general. What happens when you get to Denver? I mean, you got to make a living and figure out how to pay the bills. Where's your
Yep.
head at?
So right before I moved, I was working at a department store, like just in retail, and I used that opportunity to transfer to Denver, so I would
Oh,
still have health
smart.
insurance if anything
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Smart.
So I had a job, and so I got there, that was just took one less thing you had to worry about, right?
Sure.
And so I worked retail once I got to Denver and kind of just got settled, and then got antsy again. It's like, oh, this whole outdoor life, I'm, I'm going to go back to school. And I went back to school and got another degree in environmental planning and wanted to be an environmental planner and worked for environmental engineering company. I was a project manager there for a few years, and so also simultaneously, so I moved to Denver in 91. 92 and 93 were the first 2 years that the Tarahumara Indians went to the Leadville 100 race.
Oh, okay.
So once I got there, I'm like, who are these people? Like, they run hundreds of miles and they're coming to Leadville. And so you started to get little snippets of this in this whole new world for me of, wow, I can run in the mountains.
So how did you get it, to step that back before we get too deep into it? How did you get exposed to that? You go to Denver. Where did even distance running and ultras and Leadville? Where did this even come onto your radar? Are you out running for fun in Denver, or are you out?
I'm out
running the trails
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
no,
I
you're
got
good.
a bike right away, and so I was just dabbling, and again, I always had that endurance curiosity that I couldn't do before this time. And so that was my time to like, wow, this is completely new. I can use my athleticism. And so, yeah, I just started running, and I lived in an area by a reservoir, and you can run there and bike there. And I could do it after work. And the weather was super nice. And I'm like, this is like paradise.
So do you know what ultras are in these longer distances at this point, or you just know that it's Denver, there's beautiful places to run, and you're spending as much time as possible outside?
Yeah, so it first started, well, I guess simultaneously started with triathlon, because triathlon back then was kind of like on the trajectory that ultra running is right now, where it's just skyrocketing. So triathlon back then was kind of like the new thing.
Gotcha.
And so that caught my attention, as well as this, mountain running, like actually running in the mountains and not just for, road races.
Sure.
And so all that was kind of happening at the same time. And I'm like scrambling to find information and just learning more. It was just like I was a kid in a candy store that was like this whole new world has opened up to me.
Now,
and it was the perfect time.
Are you training specifically for all this stuff, or you're just, out doing it all and just kind of seeing how your body responds? Do you have a target like, I'm going to go race triathlon?
Right away, no. It was just, hey, I'm going to get a bike because I can go right out my apartment and ride around the reservoir, several times and run right out the door. I was playing tennis. But then another good thing about transferring that job, in that job, I met one of our buyers for the department store was from Buffalo.
Oh, interesting.
And we were both Buffalo fan. I think we even had Buffalo Bills, fans. And so there's always a connection there.
Nice.
And so we hit it off immediately. And he was a cyclist.
Oh, okay.
So I became to bike more. And he asked me to go on this bike tour with him. So we rode across Colorado from west to east. And then again, it just slow steps. All of a sudden, then I'm doing, triathlon. And so I think after that first tour across the state of Colorado, that's when I started to do more cycling races and kind of see it as like this competition thing, not just something that you do after work.
So are you really doing training on your own, like your own approach to it, or are you working with a coach at that point?
Early on, it was just I was just kind of riding and running, just doing whatever, no structure. But then on that tour across the country, we met another guy that we ended up riding with every day, and he lived close by in Denver. And so he and I started to really, really train for cycling races.
Okay.
and he was also a runner. So he was my training buddy. So, but then, wow, there's a lot here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Lots to
do you want
unpack.
me to speed it up? So,
No, man.
okay.
Unless you're in a hurry.
No,
I
no, no.
appreciate you sharing
So,
this.
but this is leading to what was the profound moment. So
Okay.
both of these guys were named Paul. And so I was the first Paul that introduced me to riding across the state. They moved away. He got a new job and moved away. So that's when me and the other Paul, every weekend we were training in the mountains of Boulder and, doing cycling races all over the Front Range. And he was hit by a bike or a car and killed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that
Obviously hits you
that-
hard
that's
still to this
when-
day.
it just it was like, wow, he had a family. He was a little older than I was, and I'm like, here I am, like kind of dabbling in all these jobs and what my career is going to be, and I'm like, things just end so quickly. And so that's when I really went to the kind of triathlon route, and just because I didn't, he wasn't around anymore, and I started to get involved with a triathlon club, and then that's when I started to do structured workouts, and this is probably 94 ish, and I would go to a master's swim program, so that was real structured, and being around others, we just started structuring workouts together, and then kind of did the whole Ironman, the whole triathlon thing. But that's when it really started to maybe think that, wow, people started to ask me for help to coach them. And to even speed it up, the late 90s, then that's when I was really kind of a handful of coaches that pioneered the online coaching business that helped me see that, wow, this could be something you do as a career. So
Sure. Well, first,
Yeah.
I'm truly sorry to hear about your friend. I mean,
Yeah.
it obviously hits you still
Yeah.
to this day, and it sounds like it was pretty impactful enough that it really makes you look at life differently. It
Yeah,
kind of makes
totally.
you get more in touch with your mortality and almost live with more intention. It sounds like
totally more intention, and not get caught up in what people think life should be about. Like, I think we just get all caught up into how life should be, and I think, getting back to some of your questions about me not necessarily thinking about what I wanted to do with my life,
you
as
start
far as
thinking about it.
I think that was all part of what I was manifesting,
Yeah.
that it wouldn't have mattered because this ultimately would have happened.
And I feel for you. I just lost my best friend about a year and a half ago to cancer, and it was a very fast decline. I mean, not quite as abrupt, obviously, as what you experienced, but losing him was kind of a similar experience where it just shakes you to your core, and it really makes you look at life completely different. And our time is so finite here, and what we're doing with it, and kind of like you say, there's so much noise and so much crap that we get distracted by. It sounds like it really kind of brought you back to, I don't know whether you knew what that center was or not. It just, like you say, it really kind of seems like it started focusing you in to where now you say you start moving into coaching people. But when do you start developing your own coaching protocol, and what does that look like, and how do you put that system together? Or was there a system at this point, or just I've done these exercises kind of ad hoc, this is what worked for me? How do you structure that into something that this is what I'm doing, but now I'm going to work with you on how to help you move forward, especially in the online space?
Well, this is where I think kind of that visualization, that imagery, that imagining things. So once I kind of got into the whole triathlon thing, I was obsessed with learning more about it and learning the science behind it, and just being the best triathlete I could be. But then I loved learning about the science of it and the physiology and the biomechanics and why could I go win a bike race, but then start swimming and not make it across the pool without having to stop. And so all these little things had profound effect on how I became as a coach. But I think I was intentionally steering myself down this path because I was so passionate about it. And with Paul dying, I'm like, I'm just going to do what I love. And so, and what started to happen too on the job side of things, I started to do all these things that I thought I wanted to do. I went back to school and got another degree, got hired on as a project manager for an engineering firm. It's what I wanted to do. And it's like, I didn't think much about it. Like I didn't go home. Like I needed to be passionate about my life. And that's how I was all my life. And I realized that the normal trajectory, there was no passion there. No
You were
matter
just doing
what job
the
it was going
thing.
to be, if I was working for someone and it wasn't athletic and athleticism and helping people, I wouldn't be passionate about it. So long story short, on a whim, I just took a desk job at the University of Colorado Health Science Center's fitness facility, like just 2 days a week. And I'm like, well, how can I do this and still work at the engineering firm? I asked them if I could go part-time, and they said yes, and we'll still allow you to keep your health benefits.
Oh, nice.
And so I did that, and I'm like, I want to do more of this. I don't even want to do that job. So I quit the engineering firm, still only working 2 days at the fitness center. Within 2 weeks of my notice quitting my job, the center asked me to be their director.
Oh, wow.
So now
Serendipitous timing.
And so now I didn't even get through my 2 week notice, and I was fitness director at the University of Colorado.
Holy smokes. Okay, so that's a huge jump. So
Yes.
before you go to there, you're doing, a couple times a week. How are you learning all this stuff? Are you taking classes? You say you start ingesting all this information. Yep. Are you just finding books and reading them? How do you know what to read? How do you know what to look for? Where are you finding this information to just suck in?
Great question. And knowing what we know now about social media, the internet, that back then that wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was very streamlined. There was a couple magazines that, monthly magazines that had really great articles. That led you down a path of maybe buying one of the author's books on physiology, or one thing kind of led to another to learn. And that was the passion of it too, is that, going to the library and just all
what you discover while you're there.
Yeah. And it was discovery. It was the perfect word, that it's not in your face 24/7 like it is now. And being so confused about what the right message is. So it was, and so I felt like I was creating my own master's program.
Nice. And as you're explaining this, it's making me think about how, as we're talking the social media side and stuff too, it's everybody posts the same books or the same this, and so we almost get, and I'm guilty of this too, just trying to digest everything as fast as possible instead of letting that curiosity lead you to the thing that really pulls you in, and then slowing down and taking the time to just really deep dive and digest it and figure out how this impacts you and how you want to utilize that. So you're coaching at this point too? You're becoming the director?
Right around that same time, that's when I started to coach some people within this triathlon group.
Okay.
And so then when I became the director at the university, the Olympic Center in Colorado Springs was offering the first triathlon coaching certification program.
Okay.
So I think it was within like the first month of being at the university, I went to the Colorado Springs to do this coaching certification program. So now I was learning very specific aspects of all the pieces of the triathlon puzzle.
Interesting. And
from
so are you just taking what
coaches
you're learning?
from the Olympic Center.
That's crazy. So are you taking what they're doing and just utilizing those same things as you're starting to coach people, or are you taking it and saying, well, maybe I'd like to tweak this a little bit and starting to develop your own approach to what you feel works and what's important and et cetera?
I think first, early on, you're maybe replicating what they're teaching
Sure.
you. You know, I think it takes time to have your own understanding of and coming up with your own way. You know, I don't
Probably
think
the confidence too,
Yeah,
just to
yeah,
come and say, hey, that's
yeah,
awesome. You're an Olympic
yeah,
Olympic
yeah,
coach, but I'm going to tweak your
yeah.
protocol.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that took, and I think that's the great thing about coaching is that you can still learn ways to improve your way and your system. And so, but yeah, definitely early on, you're just really kind of relaying information to people who know nothing.
Yeah.
you know,
Trying to
yeah,
figure out how to package all of this stuff you're so excited to digest in a way that
yeah,
is what they need at the right
exactly.
times. So when does it start to shift to where you're getting more into running and getting introduced to, Leadville and these big long trail races? Where does that start coming onto your radar and that focus shift come in?
That was still early in that move to Denver. So again, like mentioned, the 92-93 Leadville year was when the Tarahumara Indians went there for the first time, and so we caught wind of that in Denver. It was in the newspapers.
Okay.
And so you would read an article and it's like you'd want more. And
Yeah.
and
So
so
you're getting that information by proximity, if nothing else. It's bigger
Exactly.
news in the area. So again, it's almost just serendipitous that you're in the right place when all this is coming out and you're going through these other experiences. Okay.
But
Sorry.
again, since there wasn't a lot of information back then, it created almost like a mythological, like these runners weren't real. Like
Yeah.
they run in sandals, they run hundreds of miles, and they live in the deep depths of it was almost just myth because you didn't know anything about them. And so that's where, I just really attached myself to this whole ancestral part and evolutionary part of running and athleticism that kind of maybe was parallel to the science and hardcore training of triathlon. And so during my triathlon career, I was always like adventure running, and part of triathlon was, hey, let's ride our bikes to the foothills and run up the mountain and ride back. And so there was always this adventure element also that allowed me, I did quite a few adventure races where it's kayaking, cycling, running, navigating. And so I can't remember, once I decided I was going to be a coach, then my mindset was I got to experience all this so I understand it all and find my own way. So
do you still coach triathletes, or did it shift to where your primary focus became runners?
Yeah, so to really answer your question about when things shifted, I was always a runner and I was always running. The shift in coaching to primarily running really did not take place until Born to Run.
Okay.
So a decade later. So from 98 to 07, 08, I was coaching runners, I was coaching cyclists, I was coaching triathletes.
Okay.
But then once Born to Run came out in 09, that's
Everything
where
changed.
the everything exploded, and my world was rocked in a new way again, and that's where it now is mostly running.
Gotcha. So in that period of time, at what point are you still working for the college, or do you eventually after a few years drop that and go all in on coaching, or how long was that time period?
So that was about let me see. So yeah, I was at the university for 2 years, and then went to a huge fitness center in Denver, was the manager there, that continued to allow me to broaden group coaching. I could coach swimming now. I could coach, I just could do it in a lot of different ways because everything was right there.
Gotcha.
And so that was important in a lot of ways that we'll get into. But at that time, another tragedy. My wife's parents both had cancer.
Oh gosh.
And so they both had it at the same time. And so my wife moved up to Jackson Hole from Denver to be with them through their deaths. And then I followed like the end of that year. And so we moved to Jackson in late 2002, which then they both kind of died 8 months apart. And that was, again, a gift that allowed me to then really start my own coaching business. And that's when I went full time to online coaching.
I'm sorry to hear about that. That's, I mean, losing both parents at the same time, that's got to be extremely tough too. But you mentioned though, your wife, where did your wife come into the picture? Where did you meet your wife?
So in Denver, she went to the University of Wyoming, and then if you go to University of Wyoming, you either go like to Bozeman or to Denver, and she went to Denver, and we met at a party. It was kind of a funny story. I had a big it was a Friday party, and I had a big training day set up for the next day, Saturday, and I was actually in bed. And this is when you had answering machines.
Yeah.
And so these girls kept calling to make me come to this party. And I'm like, that's when you didn't have to lift up. You just heard the answering machine come on. You kept hearing these messages. And after about 5, they said, "We have free pizza." And I picked up and I said, all right, I'm on my way.
Pizza did it. I'll be there.
I was literally in bed. No reason why I should have gone to this. And I did, and we met. And so, yeah, we got married in Denver and then moved to Jackson in her hometown in 2002.
And how long you been married now?
So 28 years, something like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, 28. Yeah. So.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's amazing how the right partnership, I think, just even elevates us in our
totally.
sense of self and wanting to be better for the sake of being the best person that we can be for this other, for our partners. So, no, that's awesome. So, okay, so you're I'm trying to put all this put all this together here. So you're in Denver still. You're did you say you got married in Denver or you got married in Jackson?
We got married in Jackson, but we were still in Denver at the time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And so then now you start working for the fitness center. You're starting to do group coaching. And where does it go from there? Are you racing at this point?
Yes, still racing. At that point, so all of the last part of the 90s, from like 95 on, I was triathlon racing. I was ultra racing. I was adventure racing. I was cycler racing. I was just
in
Mr. Multisport.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it wasn't really until the move to Jackson when I then went full time with my coaching business, and I primarily that presented a whole new environment for running. That now the mountains are right out my door. You don't have to drive to them from Denver. And so that's when I thought I was doing mountain running. Well, it wasn't until I moved to Jackson where mountain running really then became my gig. And I was still cycling just because I like
cross training or enjoying it. Yeah. So how many people are you coaching at this point?
It wasn't enough to be full time at it because I started then, yeah, I guess what you would consider personal training, just to kind of make ends meet when I first
Okay.
started to make a go at this.
And that's one of the
But
things actually I wanted to ask you is because there's a lot of people that they've run a few races and they want to want to get into coaching, and it's the what you hear out there is quit whatever you're doing, go all in on your passion, everything will work out. The reality is it's got to be a tough haul. So you being as ingrained in this stuff as you are, you're still trying to figure out how this is going to look as a full-time opportunity, and look, it sounds like doing some other training on top of that to kind of bring it all together.
well, I think the turning point with everything before we even moved is there was a significant decision I made that it would have been real easy to say, oh, I'm not going to become a coach until I have 20 athletes, or that until I make a certain X amount of money. And I still remember where I was. This profound decision I made was, no, I am deciding to be a coach right this minute. It doesn't matter if I have one athlete, 10 athletes, 20 athletes. That doesn't decide or dictate that I'm a coach or not.
Because the goalpost can always move.
If I would have waited until I made X amount of money, I would never have done it.
Sure.
Just deciding to be a coach was all that it was needed.
And was there something specific that triggered that to just, where it flipped that switch and you're like, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am?
Yes. Yeah. It was that profound, and it was that's what was starting to also become this system of thinking of getting what you want, that it's an immediate decision, and then being that, and then all the cool things happen along the way, which is where the cool and possible term came. It's
okay.
No, don't wait. So often we as humans, we're conditioned, if we're going to decide to do something, we want to know what's going to happen. And that's impossible. I didn't know, we line up for a race, we train for it, but we don't really know what's going to happen. But oftentimes we want to know before we declare it.
Right.
And that stops us.
And even if you think what the actual end point is, generally not what you thought it was in the first place.
Exactly. So if I put conditions on making this decision to become a coach, it wasn't going to work. Gotcha. I just decided to become a coach that day, and then I started to live like a coach.
Okay. And I think that's an important point. You make that decision, and it's not just what you're going to be; it's who you are.
Exactly, and that's where then everything just started to fall in place.
Gotcha.
New job. I didn't even have to apply to the job. They
just know that you're the guy.
Yeah, it just, everything just started to happen. Born to Run, all this stuff that you could not even dreamed up was because I made that decision to be the person I wanted to be, and it started right then. It wasn't conditional on anything. Gotcha.
So you're making this shift now, and the Born to Run story is out there. It's been told a lot of different ways. So I think it's an important part of your story, so worth touching on. But we don't have to go super deep in that. And but how did the Born to Run thing come about? How did you get involved with Chris and just this whole movement that Born to Run really took on?
Yeah. So where I left off in Jackson, I started to personal train, but I did it in a different way. Whereas I was training endurance athletes outside for their sport. And so it wasn't traditional personal training. It wasn't in a gym. We were using the elements to train for ski mountaineering, for cycling, whatever it is. And Men's Journal caught wind of this. It was a magazine, Men's Journal back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
caught wind of my training and hired Chris McDougall to write a story on my training here in Jackson.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be like the summer adventure workout of the year. That was the title. It was like some goofy, no, it was America's Greatest Adventure Workout, something like that. So it was a summer issue, but it was in like January when this started. So we had to go find a place that didn't have much snow because we're in snow in Jackson. So I said, Chris, meet me in Denver. We'll find some dirt. So we met in Denver for 3 days to do this article on my training in Jackson. And that was right after Chris got back from the Copper Canyon, his first visit.
Okay.
And
so that's fresh on his mind when he comes out to meet you.
The Copper Canyon was for a story for Runner's World.
Okay.
So he's like a week back from this trip. We meet in Denver. He's picking my brain about this workout, and I'm like, tell me about the Tarahumara Indians. And so we hit it off immediately. And so we were planning to meet for 2 days for this article on my training. And we went to City Park in Denver to do this workout the first day. And it immediately turned into me coaching Chris how to run.
Crazy.
And
crazy. And
at the end of that day, I went back to the hotel and ripped up my script for what we're going to do the next day. And I'm like, no, I'm going to teach this guy how to run. So I basically sabotaged my workout for the article. But by the end of that second day, we were sitting on the green at the park, and he's like, well, hey, I'm going back for this race. Will you coach me for the race? And I'll get you into the race. So that was the start of the Born to Run journey.
Which is crazy how that all comes together, because it sounded like you already were aware, from being in Denver, from the Leadville connection, and then this comes together. It's just got to be another one of those serendipitous moments that it's like, holy crap, is this real that these pieces are getting put together? That's nuts.
My adventure career started in Denver. I went back to Denver, met Chris, and my whole new journey in a crazy way, started in Denver.
Are you just like on cloud nine at this point that all these things are happening? Were you, I don't know, I guess there's no way to have any idea that this is where things are going to go, but as it's happening, is it in your mind, is it like, yes, this is what I was trying to do, these are the opportunities I was trying to create, or was it just this happened and you're like, I'm going to take I'm going to embrace this opportunity for everything I can?
When we first started talking, I talked about having a feeling of, it's going to sound weird, but I always had a feeling of what I wanted to become as a coach. And I wanted to be recognized as one of the worldwide coaches. I didn't know what that looked like, but that was the feeling. If I was going to do this, that's what I wanted to be. I couldn't become like the best ultra runner. I knew that wasn't in the cards, but with my passion and wanting, we haven't even talked about my passion for helping people, but that's a big part of, I feel, my gift is that I had this feeling of what I wanted this to look like. And I didn't know the specifics, but the specifics just started to happen. And it's those things that you just can't dream of.
That's crazy. Yeah. I can't imagine. So we'll just kind of fast forward without, replaying too much of the Born to Run side, but as that book comes out, your name is just out there beyond probably your wildest dreams. And you're, I would assume, already having success with the people that you're coaching at that point. What happens to your coaching business, from that point forward?
The funny thing is, there was a 2.5 year period between our trip to the canyon and when the book came out. And so you kind of get, you have no idea that
what's
it's actually going to become Born to,
right,
a worldwide bestseller.
Nobody could have seen that.
That's not in the cards at that point.
Right.
But you also get back into the everyday life. And, there's a magazine article that came out about it, but it's like, back to norm.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, bam.
I remember reading about it on the back of a newspaper article before it blew up. Reading, and it was just this kind of side story still. To your point, and then nobody could have foresaw where it went.
So then it was just like the Cool Impossible. My book actually became self-preservation in a way, because I could not, like, I was just hearing from thousands and thousands of people. And so there was no way that, other than I had training, I sold training programs that people just buy online. That's
Sure.
also saved me, but I was just not prepared for the amount of people that I was going to hear from.
Yeah, I can't imagine what
Yeah.
that's like, trying to digest all that. So let me shift then, to your book. So when did this, jump up on your radar that you wanted to write a book? Was, where was it within this kind of whole Born to Run, cycle? Were you already working on it?
I was definitely working on it, not realizing I was working on it. And
Gotcha.
I'm not sure, I always knew I wanted to write a book. Obviously, it became much, much easier after Born to Run came out.
Sure.
So again, it was partly preservation, because now I can write a book and it can go to the masses and really help people without it can really help a lot of those people that have questions but not need coaching.
I would
And
almost, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You say it made it easier, and I'm sure in some regards because you've got some pieces that you're connecting with, Chris, to where maybe you have, hey, talk to this person when it comes to trying to publish and all that. But I would almost think that it puts a lot of pressure on you, because now you're the guy. Like, you are the Born to Run coach. Everybody's looking at you, and now you're putting together basically a manuscript of how you approach things, which I love the way that you wrote this. And I was telling you this when we were talking last, as you were talking about how you were bringing people out to Jackson and how you're approaching, the training side of it. It reads like, somebody's, like, you're talking to me. I really love how you wrote it. So I'm really interested in how you approach the writing process. Did you say these are all the chapters and things that I want to cover, and break it out and put a structured, I'm gonna write a couple hours every morning or afternoon? Or did you just sit down and start pen to paper and kind of came up with the skeleton of what became the book?
so before,
Because it's really well written.
yeah, thank you. So before I wrote the book, I was doing running camps here in Jackson.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed that. But I started to realize through people's comments and my own experience that during these camps, I had an itinerary of what I wanted to teach.
Mm-hmm.
But what became even more valuable for these people was all the little comments that I would just rattle off that I didn't even realize I was, like, saying, because
To you, it's second nature.
And they're like, "Oh, I've never heard that before. Tell me more about that." And they would call them eisms. And so I wanted the reader to feel like they were at a camp. And that's where each chapter was a day, I bring you to Jackson. And I wanted to create that. Not everybody can come to Jackson for a run camp with me. I think they're very, very valuable in a profound experience. And I wanted to try, in a very small way, convey that feeling in the book, which I wanted to be this one-on-one environment where it's you and me, and I'm coaching you through all this. And that's just the format that I wanted. And whether I realized it or not, I'm not the most technically proficient writer, but going back to the visualization and imagery, I think where I am good writing is that I have the ability to see a situation and convey it on words that almost allows the reader to visualize exactly what I'm saying in a way that I'm seeing it for them.
That's crazy. And I couldn't have said that better. You nailed how I see it as I'm reading it. And it's crazy and cool to hear you, explain that that's what your intent was, because that's really what I took away from it is your writing is so, like, conversational, to where I can hear your voice, like, talking to me, and as you're explaining these things and talking about my feet on the grass, bare feet on the grass, and what I'm looking around at, and what I'm seeing, and like, it really, it's a really well written book. It is, at least maybe it's how I like to read, and how you laid things out. Like I said, I'm reading it again. It's been a while since I'd read it, and I wanted to go back through and read it again. Now, where did the name The Cool Impossible come from?
Joe Strummer.
Really?
Explain
that.
I'm a big Clash fan. So,
yeah,
for those listeners out there who are not in on the Clash, so Joe Strummer was the rhythm guitar player and lead singer, or one of the lead singers for the Clash. And so I have several books on the Clash, and I love musical history and reading about bands. And so one of the books I have, in their first couple years as a band, that was, the beginning of the punk, the clothing punk scene, where they would spray paint, their clothing and sayings, and he had on his shirt, The Cool Impossible.
Interesting.
And I'm like, it always just stuck with me. And there's even a song he wrote, like, not with the Clash, but afterwards, called The Cool Impossible. And so that was always in the back of my mind. And so then once I started to see this, my lifestyle philosophy, if you will, or way of thinking of manifesting and creating what you want, it came to me as like, okay, what is the cool impossible? The cool impossible is looking at something that you want to do that you might think is impossible because you don't know how to get there. But if you decide to do it, all these cool things happen along the way. And it's the cool things that happen along the way that are most important. And so my publisher actually was okay with the book title, and that's how it came about.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you view your own book all this time later? I mean, as you look back, and think over what you wrote, how you wrote it, does it land now in the way that you intended, where you're at now in your life and career? Do you feel like you articulated everything, exactly how you wanted to? Is there, The Cool Impossible 2 in the works, down the road at some point?
It definitely is still very, very relevant, because I still, people are still buying it now, and it's still a big part of either my training plans or what I teach. It's the core principles. If you want to, understand heart rate training zones, if you want to develop speed training zones, that's the fundamental way I do it to this day. That has not changed. The importance of foot core and training the feet, that has not changed. Yes, I've developed more, but those are more advanced, where this is the core.
This is still the fundamental manual right here.
Every athlete I have still does this.
Nice. That's awesome to hear.
How to visualize, in the process of visualization, and how that can be a way to train, still is what I do. So it's still very, very relevant. I've just, it's always to have more to more and more and more, and,
Sure.
tentacles along the way, which is the fun part of coaching.
So let's dive into the coaching side then.
Yeah.
You've been coaching for all this time now, and as you say, it develops over time, and I'm sure also as you see the impacts with the athletes that you're working with, and what works, and how has your approach to training changed over the years from where it was? You mentioned the mental side is becoming more and more important.
Yeah. That's something that I'm going to be doing more of, independent of the physical coaching. That what I'm seeing with a lot of runners is that what tends to hold them back, whether it's if they first start running or they're a seasoned veteran runner, is the mental side. And I've always been interested in that, and I've always infiltrated it with my athletes without them really knowing. but I'm going to be doing more and more consulting for training the brain to improve your performance.
Can you explain that a little bit more about how you would approach that? Like, what does that look like? If I come to you and I say I'm getting ready to train for, my first 100. I mean, we've seen the sport blow up, and you have somebody that's reaching out to you. What does that look like? Is it the visualization side? Is it run less, cross train more? Is it what does that look like when you say train
In
the brain?
that specific instance, it could be, hey, everybody's a rock star at mile 30, right? Can you be a rock star at mile 70? And all the mental games that we have to play with ourselves within that ultra marathon that can make or break a DNF or a finish. Or, hey, you can always do a little bit more than you think as far as getting closer to your goal for that race. And just, everything becomes such a mental game, once things get hard. And it always gets hard.
Do you think it's changed since the sport has blown up so much? Really over the last 5-10 years, it's insane. The social media and all that, the coverage that it gets. The joke back in the day, is the ultras were 90% mental, 10% physical. And now I think even more so for the new crop of runners. I guess I'm trying to think of how I want to position that question. I'm just kind of curious, how you see the change in how people are approaching the sport with such a wider lens on it now. Even with the elites, more sponsorships, and it's more about social media presence and all that stuff. How do you keep people grounded?
I think the big change and the big hurdle for people getting into the sport now, because it's a thing, it's more popular, people jump. Hey, they may never have been a runner, and they jump right into ultramarathoning, and they've skipped out on all that development.
Yeah.
Where back when we started, I'll use triathlon as an example. Back when I was doing triathlons, there was only a few Ironmans, and you had to qualify to do an Ironman. So there was this built-in system of development that you started with a sprint, and you went to an Olympic distance, and you went to a half, and then maybe you got good enough to qualify for a full Ironman. And what's happened in that development is you've honed your speed and your strength and your endurance as a progression.
Yeah, building that base over
and
time.
It's no different than all the new pro runners coming into ultra running right now, is that the reason they're good and breaking records is now they're coming from college.
Yeah.
They're fast. They're coming from a speed background.
Yeah.
All the systems in place for highly competitive running develop from a speed standpoint. You start shorter and faster and progress to longer, and so they come into the ultra sport now as a truly very, very fast runner, and then they just apply endurance to it. Whereas
over the distance.
Age grouper is doing just the opposite. Since they were never maybe running or had a running background, they're going to do an ultra. So what do they think they need to do? I need to go out and do my long run.
Yeah.
And that development is so much slower. And you miss out on all the strength that comes with that. So I guess that's my answer of what I've seen different, is that people coming into the sport don't realize how important that development is if getting better is important to you.
Yeah, no, I think you nail a great point. And something else you'd mentioned too is a big part of this, of your joy of this sport and being involved in it, is being in the service of others. And I'm sure, from a coaching standpoint, I mean, you only have so much bandwidth and so many people that you can truly give that focus to. So talk a little bit about, you do have a social media presence, and you've got your YouTube channel, which, I love watching your videos too, and, dorking out on shoes and some of the lessons and stuff. What does it mean to you to kind of lower that barrier of entry for accessibility of you being able to share what you've learned with anybody that wants to have access to it.
Yeah, I've tried to do that early on of never really relying on any one thing, like from a business side of thing, diversification, right?
For sure.
So I think, I really have in place some type of knowledge, content for anyone out there who wants to who cares to get better, whether it's personal coaching, which is, the more intimate side of things, the one-on-one. I have, consulting calls where if you just want to talk for an hour or so and figure out how we can get your running better. I do run form video consultation. My YouTube channel has a library of that was kind of started as a passion project where I just kind of go out on riff and what comes to mind, and it's kind of created the same feeling that my camps did, where people, will comment how much they enjoy the videos, because it's just stuff it's not the normal stuff you hear about that can really, really be beneficial. So training plans, so books, we just came out with Born to Run 2 years ago. So there's so much out there that I do that however you want to get involved with what I do, there's a way for you to get involved.
There's plenty of opportunities.
Yeah.
So with it all, this might be hard to answer. What are you most proud of in your, we'll say in your running and coaching career? Out of all these things that you've been a part of, all these things that you've done, all these people that you've impacted, is there one thing that stands above the rest?
I was going to say that's a hard question, a good question, but it's an easy one now. It's still to this day, I hear people who have read Born to Run say it changed my life. I mean, literally that profound. And that never gets old hearing that. And that's pretty cool to be able to say you were a small part of changing someone's life and
of the whole landscape of people's approach to running and introducing that into their lives. I could imagine that, because you truly are. I mean, you are part of that massive shift in the movement of running culture. And I mean, that's absolutely insane. I do have to ask you one thing. I'm totally curious. Shoes. Stack height. Heel drop.
We're hour something in. We just getting the shoes now. I love it.
I know. So I have to ask though, because I think one of your favorite shoes, or at least it was one of yours, is still one of my favorite too. The Innovate Terra Ultra. I think it was a 270 G or whatever it was. But
I can see it right now.
Oh, can you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love that shoe. But I'm curious what your take on shoes, shoes are, and how that, I'm getting excited now. How it impacts training and all that, because with Born to Run it was all minimal. Spray paint the bottom of your feet and go run in the dirt. But has that changed now with the maximalist shoes? Do you see a benefit to mixing it up? Like, what's your take on footwear?
I need to take one jump back, and it goes back to still kind of the foot core and the foot training. A lot of my aha moments in the whole journey that we just talked about was how important the feet were. And so my philosophy has always been train the feet, because that's our first line of stability as a runner. That's where our health is, all the way up through our torso. And it's if you can strengthen the feet, you're going to strengthen other areas of your body in how you train the feet. And that's what people don't understand. It's not just about training the feet. It's how you train the feet utilizes and activates other parts of our body. And that's so potent. So if you train the feet, then you can kind of pick and choose the shoes that you need for whatever type of running you do. So that's my core philosophy, is train the feet first, and then pick the shoe of choice as your tool
based on your whatever you're going after.
And
so it's not specifically a shoe.
Yeah. So what happens is that as you get stronger in the feet, your feet naturally want to work better.
Yeah.
They seek out stability. So naturally you tend to want a little bit lower stack height, just because your feet are working better.
Yep.
And so then my challenge is always, yeah, having a natural feeling shoe, but still have protection in the mountains.
For sure.
And I'm always still kind of dealing with that. But I think it's, with all that, I think it's super exciting right now with all the new foam. And, this new foam now is a game changer in a lot of ways
Yeah.
that I still think we're feeling out. It's still kind of rough
Yeah.
from a from a good for your body type of perspective.
We're still so early in this
Yeah.
kind of maximalist.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you because, like I said, that Innovate is still one of my favorite shoes. When they were going on sale, I bought like 6 pairs and
Exactly.
stuffed them in my closet. But at the same time, I'm really dorking out on the Mount to Coast, the T1 and the H1, but I still like the lower, like 4 mil drop. And anyway, to your point though about it all stemming from foot health. I want to go back to this. So one of the reasons I'm loving about rereading this is I had told you I had a herniated disc and had surgery about a little over a year ago, and I had never, I'd worked on all my core and stability and all that stuff, but I didn't realize how integral foot health was for my whole chain. And I will tell you that now, being back a year after surgery, I mean, I'm back, slamming mountains and hammering my downhills. This has been huge in that refocusing on foot health is that starting point. So I really like that you're keying off on that.
Well, I'm glad you said that because it's super hard to convey how potent exercises are when you're showing in a book on a picture of someone standing barefoot on their one leg. It doesn't
Yeah.
resonate to being profound and potent, but
That's
it
not
is.
my Instagram picture on the mountain. But it is crazy how important that is, and especially as we get older, I think even more so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too that Dove's points, and one point I want to get across is that, the whole shoe thing, the whole foot strength thing, variety is key. Train the feet, do some things with a minimal shoe. That doesn't mean you're not a barefoot runner or a minimal runner. Use it as a tool, some days of the week, because it's some of the most potent strength that we can do. And then use your other shoe for your long stuff and your fast stuff, and just see them all as tools. And you have a toolbox and they all have a purpose, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah, but don't forget the fundamentals and where it all starts from the feet.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, you have been extremely generous with your time. So
That's
there are a couple questions that I'd like to ask, to kind of tie it up. But first, I'd just like to ask you: is there anything? There's so many more questions I would love to ask, but is there anything specific that I haven't asked that you would like to touch on to make sure we get that out here in this conversation?
I mean, I have no need to get out a message. I just like talking about running. So I think the only message is maybe that if you want longevity in running, don't do it for fitness or weight loss or any conditional result. Do it out of joy. Running can be joyful, and make it fun, and it will reward you double time.
I love that. Echoes what I try to promote too. Is it's like being a kid on the playground.
Yeah.
Go out and have fun with it, and don't be afraid to stop and look around with that like childlike wonder of that we forget so much if we're racing or we're training all the time and our heads are down. Enjoy it.
That's so funny. I have a couple athletes who they just can't like stop and enjoy the smell the roses, so to speak, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I will assign in their long run, you got to take a photo every half hour and attach it to your workout.
But you can't take it while you're running. You have to stop and take it in.
No.
I think that's so important. I quit. I kind of got away from racing because kind of that same thing. You get so sucked into it, and I don't really run with a watch much either because it's so easy to get so focused on those things when what's really, I think, to your point, important is just the joy of being out there, the joy of movement outside. Yeah, I love that. So I was going to ask this earlier on, but I am really curious. Is there any one specific mentor that really impacted you in a deeply meaningful way that kind of stands out among the people that you've interacted
I think
with?
all along the way. I mean, I think we touched on music. I think music has a special feeling, creates that same feeling as running does. We got to talk about that in a minute.
I was going to say, we didn't even talk about your guitars and yeah.
But like Bruce Lee, he was not only one of the most profound martial artists, but he was also a coach, and he also had a life philosophy. And so I like that package, and that was very inspirational to like see outside of the running realm, that maybe this is kind of how I want to be as a coach and as a person. I think Bill Bowerman, who started Nike, he kind of came from the same background as I did. He was a football player, a football coach that ultimately become a running coach and started Nike and coached Prefontaine. So just, Pop Warner, just kind of people that had my similar path that maybe is non-traditional in a way. And then early on and with triathlon, like Mark Allen and Phil Maffetone, they were
pioneers.
Kind of the first to really talk about maybe a little bit lower carbohydrate intake, easier training, periodized training, all things that we kind of know as just, you don't even think about it anymore. But back then it was a new way of thinking.
For sure. Do you get into the nutrition with your athletes when you're training?
Yes. And it's more, aside from the kind of, I consult on nutritional side of things, but within personal coaching with my athletes, every athlete's just a little different. But most of them, where most of them get it is the racing nutrition of what we're doing to perform. Some we get into the daily stuff, and others we don't. It just kind of depends on who the person is and what their interest is in it. But yeah.
Do you have any specific mantras or anything that you live by? You said kind of E-isms, people will mention those, but is there any one thing that sticks in your mind that you always kind of go back to when you're doing the thing?
All right. I just wrote this down in my journal today. Imagery is the womb of creativity.
Okay. Explain that.
It goes to everything we've talked about. If you can see where you want to go, that's your decision. And it starts to unfold for yourself. And if you can see where you want to go, you are conditioning that to happen in the future. And start to live it now. Like I would play tricks with myself early on of like, do I want to be a millionaire? Like, because of the money, or do I want to be a millionaire because of what freedom you have with having that money?
Sure.
So I decided I'm a millionaire right now because I want all the good benefits that come from being a millionaire.
The flexibility of your time.
Yeah. And so
embrace that creativity.
Yeah. So it has nothing to do with money, but you start living that way. And then that's the most important thing, right? If how you're living it. So, imagery is the womb or the start, the incubation of the creative process of the daily lifestyle.
Yeah. And I love that creativity is a part of it, because I think, going back to as we get older, I think we lose that. We lose again that, that embracing of the creative approach to things, and we get so kind of just locked into doing this, and you forget to get lost in it and back to the joy, the simple joy of things.
Life is a creative endeavor.
Yeah.
And I think we lose that, or maybe even don't even think of it that way, and in a way that we can create what we want. And I truly believe that, because I've done it myself, and we've all kind of maybe done it in our own way that we don't realize.
Yeah.
But that's what I want to get out there is like, okay, there is a process, just like training for an ultra marathon. There's a way to train the brain to get what you want out of life. And that's really what's intrigued me about the next part of my coaching.
That's what I was going to say. Is it sounds
Yeah.
like that's probably
Yeah.
informing then this next step of your
Yeah, and we
coaching
can
journey.
use running as a vehicle to do that. But maybe now, yeah, it's about going to compete in an ultra marathon, but it might be, how do I go down a different career path, or how do I go from, you know, working for a business to writing a book or starting my own business or something like that. I believe there's a way to train the brain to make that happen, just like training a muscle.
For sure. Yeah. Learning how to embrace change and lean into it. And Tim Ferriss, one of the things, I think one of his sayings is lifestyle by design.
Yes.
And kind of falls into
Perfect.
that.
Yeah.
So I have a closing question that I like to do with all these, but first I do want to ask about the music side a little bit more, because we talked about your guitar collection that I don't know that you're playing as much as you'd like to, or you do dust them off and jam out a little bit. What's music look like for you now on a day-to-day basis?
No, I mean, the actual
where did guitar come into the picture?
My wife got it for me long time ago. And so, but to be honest, I mean, if I picked it up now, it would be like starting over. So it's just sitting there. And that was part of my vision board for this year of getting back to playing the guitar and callousing the fingers again. And just
muscle memory.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely a beginner again. So
that's kind of fun though. It's the beginner's wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that was actually part of it, of just adopting that beginner mindset again.
Yeah,
So,
keeps it fun. You're never too old to start again.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Well, Eric, again, I truly appreciate you sharing the time and chatting with me. So, like I said, I've got a question that I like to kind of close these things out on, and take it as you will, answer however you want. But what does legacy mean to you, and what's the legacy that you want to be remembered for?
That's kind of easy. I really don't care, other than what effect I have on my daughter. So if I don't, I just, that's all I am really concerned about is if, she maybe is inspired by me in any way, or, that legacy or whatever, that's all I really care about is what she thinks of me, and any little ounce of inspiration I might provide of maybe following a different path that she could use in her own life. I think Born to Run is going to be ultimately probably the legacy that's built in, but I don't need to be known for anything really.
You live the life, and the life is the legacy, as it continues to unfold. But it seems like what is most important is the people that are close to you.
Again, maybe also it's, my whole coaching way is that, I believe, good coaches create belief and not just write a training plan. And so the legacy maybe is within every coach or every athlete I've coached, that they kind of now have a belief that they can do something, whether it's within the running realm or anywhere else in their life, that that's always kind of with them, whether we've worked together for a year or 10 years. So,
sounds like it's building those relationships and building that trust.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
I love that, man.
So, yeah.
Well, it's been a long, winding conversation, and again, I appreciate it, man. I think we're gonna have to take some time to process and come back at it again, because I'm sure there's 100 more questions that we could dive into.
Best one all time, and if let's do it again. We can dive into hardcore coaching or training or like whatever. We can just do a little segment. I would love to. So this has been
riff
great.
Off on it. So, I would love that too. So let's definitely make that happen.
Cool.
Yeah. So, lastly, then, where can people find you if they want to, learn more about you personally, your coaching?
Yeah.
How can they reach out?
Website is ericorton.com. Google.
Eric with a C.
Yes.
Yep.
And then just search my name in YouTube. It's Born to Run Coach. Most of my social media handle is Born to Run Coach. In YouTube's my big one. I'm on Instagram, but I place most of my focus on YouTube, the longer form.
You're in a pretty fortunate spot that you're an easy guy to track down, without too much effort if you really want to. So that's awesome.
Cool.
Well, again, I appreciate it. Everything that you have created, in this life that you've lived is truly inspirational. And as I said, even just the wisdom that you put together a long time ago is having an impact in my life again.
Good.
And so I appreciate it, man. I really do.
Well,
and,
I appreciate your great questions. It's always these podcasts are only as good as the questions, and it's good to go down memory lane and maybe force me to think about how all this kind of came together. So I really, really enjoyed this a lot.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. I always get really nervous coming into these things because I want to, my philosophy is I always want to ask a better question, but I try to, speak less and listen more. And it goes back to the curiosity thing. The whole reason I wanted to start this is I'm just endlessly fascinated with people and their journeys that have led them to present day. And I think a key component of the conversations, for one, I think we're losing the art of just actual interaction.
Right.
And sure, we're doing this through cameras and stuff, but it's so great to be able to see your face and see facial expressions and have a real conversation. But I truly think it's the relationships that we build and understanding, what has led us up to make the decisions that we've had and inform us. And I love hearing your transition in your coaching philosophy to where you're really dialing into that side that we don't think about a lot, which is that, the mental side and really just, I don't know, trying to put people in a good place to succeed in whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to get to Boise too, and you're going to have to give me a tour around the trails. So
I was going to say, you're always welcome, and we'd love to. We've got a cabin up north, and there's some amazing races up there that I think you would absolutely either love to come and see and be a part of, or we just got to get you up here and get you on the trails. So we're definitely going to make that happen. I think our next conversation should be in person.
Next YouTube thing. So of going to different locations. So yeah, let's definitely do that. So
all right, we're going to host you out here, and then we'll have a face-to-face conversation.
Perfect. Awesome.
All right, brother. Well, Eric, I really appreciate it, man.
Jake.
Yep, we'll talk soon.
See ya.
Take care.